Hi gentlemen, today we're going to look at equations of circles. So with the equations of circles, we're starting our conic section. And our conic section actually comes from slicing these cones in different ways. So we're going to make parabolas, circles, ellipses, and hyperbolas. So we are going to be looking at all of these. Now, just a couple things that you need to remember from geometry. Remember, a circle has a center, it does have a diameter and a radius. And remember that the radius is half of the diameter, so we are going to need to use some of that concept. So looking at the general form, the standard form actually, of a circle, it is x minus h squared, so it's a quantity of x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals to the radius squared. The h and the k is our center, okay? X and y is going to be a point on the circle, and r is going to be our radius here, okay? So we do have a lot of information that we can get when it's in standard form. So let's just make sure that we know how to identify the center and the radius. So we're not going to do all of them. The rest you do have to do. You have to complete. So here, looking at the first one, notice that the center here would be at 3, -1, because remember we are doing the opposite. And then the radius on this one is going to be 4, because you do have to remember that this here is radius squared. Let's look at number 4 here. The center here would be at 6, -3. And then the radius would just be 25, because the square root, this is r squared, so that means that the radius is 25 there. Let's look at number 6 here. Notice that the center here, there is no h or k, so it's at 0, 0, and the radius is at 4, because remember, this is r squared, so we're going to take the square root. Now that we know how to identify the center and the radius, we can write equations of circles. So notice here they have the center at 3, -2 and radius 4. So we're going to write x minus 3 squared plus y minus a -2 squared is equal to 4 squared. And we're just going to simplify a little bit here where we can. So this would become y plus 2 squared is equal to 16. And that would be your answer. Let's look at number 10 here. Notice that this is going to be x minus a -4 squared plus y minus a -1 squared is equal to 1 squared. So we end up with the quantity of x plus 4 squared plus y plus 1 squared is equal to 1, because 1 squared is 1. Make sure to complete the ones that we haven't done, and make sure to submit it at the end. Just a couple things that we do also need to know is from algebra. We need to know the distance formula, because sometimes we may be given 2 points on the circle, and they may not give us the radius or the center. So we may need to also use the midpoint formula. So let's look at this one. It says the endpoints of a diameter are 3, 2, and 5, -4. So what we first need to do is we first need to find the diameter. And with the diameter, we need to find the distance between them. So we're going to do 5 minus 3 squared plus -4 minus 2 squared. So we end up with 5 minus 3, which is 2 squared, plus -6 squared. So we end up with 4 plus 36, which is the square root of 40, which tells us that our radius is half of that. So I'm going to just leave it as square root of 40 over 2 right now. Then we're going to also need to find our center. And our center is actually the midpoint between them, because remember that in a circle, if we have the diameter, the halfway point is the center, which is our midpoint. So if we're looking for our midpoint here, which is our center, we need to use this formula here. So we are going to have 3 plus 5 divided by 2, and 2 plus a -4 divided by 2. So we're going to get 8 over 2 and -2 over 2, which gives us 4 comma negative 1. Now we have our center and our radius, so we can write our equation. So it's going to be x minus 4, the quantity of x minus 4 squared, plus y minus a negative 1 squared is equal to the square root of 40 divided by 2 squared. So we end up with x minus 4 squared plus y plus 1 squared. Now this is going to give us 40 over 4. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify a little bit more here. 40 divided by 4 is 10. So that would be the equation of the circle that has endpoints of the diameter at 3, 2, and 5, negative 4. So good job. I do want you to complete the other 2 on your own, following the same procedure. Now, with the next part, we have standard form, which we just learned, and we have general form. Now, when they give it to us in general form, we are going to have to go back and use what we've learned back in Algebra 2 to write it in standard form. So to convert to standard form, you do have to do what's called completing the square. So what you're going to do is you're going to group your x's together, and you're going to then group your y's together, okay? And you're going to move the constant to the other side. So it's going to be x squared minus 8x plus y squared equals to 7, negative 7 here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and complete the square. So if you forgot how to complete the square, make sure to go back and review. But just as a refresher here, remember you have to take this term, the constant of your linear term, divided by 2 and square it, which would give us negative 4 squared is 16, and then you add 16 on this side. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side, but notice there's nothing on this side here, so that would be it. So when we complete the square now, we are going to now have x minus 4 squared plus y squared equals, and then negative 7 plus 16 is 9. So we go ahead, and that would be our final answer because there's nothing else for us to do. Notice here our center would be at 4, 0, and our radius is at 3. Let's practice one more here. Again, first step is to get all your x's together, so x squared plus 8x, and move all your y's together. So I'm going to go ahead and move this one over. So I'm going to get y squared minus 2y is equal to 64. From there, I'm going to take this number and divide it by 2, and I get 8 divided by 2 is 4, squared is 16, so I have to add 16 to both sides. And then I get this number and divide it by 2 squared, and I end up with 1, so I'm going to add 1 because I have to balance this equation. From there, I'm going to go ahead and factor, so I get x plus 4 squared plus y minus 1 squared is equal to, and then now I need to just add the 64 plus the 16 and then plus the 1. And I'm going to end up with 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 1 is 11, 131. So here the center is at negative 4, 1, and then the radius would be the square root of 131. And that would be our answer there. I do want you to practice the other ones. Now let's put everything together because now we're going to have to graph here as well. So here, notice the first thing you want to do is always identify your center, which is negative 4, 6. And then the radius is square root of 18. Now you do want to kind of know what the square root of 18 is. And that simplified would be 3. Wait, give me a second here. wasn't writing. Remember that 18 is the same thing as saying 9 times 2, so it'd be 3 square root of 2. So when we go ahead and start plotting this, we're going to plot our center first, which is going to be at negative 4, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and positive 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right about here is what we get. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to take the square root of 18. We know that's going to be less than 5 because the square root of 25 is 5. But it is going to be greater than 4 because the square root of 16 is 4. So it is going to be closer to the 4 unit, so 4 point something. And since we're not going to have a calculator, we're just going to round. It's going to be about 4 point and a little bit more. So we're going to move over 4 units horizontally, both directions, and 4 units vertically. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit. Because it's going to be, the square root of 18 is about 4.2. And then from there, all we're going to do is go ahead and draw our circle. And there it is. That is our circle with center at negative 4, 6. Now let's do number 2. Number 2, notice that it's not in standard form. So the first thing you have to do is you do need to get rid of this coefficient here. So we're going to divide everything by 3 because remember, it cannot have a number in front. So now we're going to end up with x minus 4 squared plus y squared. And that's going to be 54 divided by 3, we get 18 again. So again, here we get 4, 0, and the square root of 18. So this time we're going to go to 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then again, it's about 4.2, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. And vertically as well. And again, we go ahead and draw our circle. And there it is. So I do want you to complete the other ones. Notice that the next one are in general form, so you do need to convert it to standard form first, and then you can go ahead and find the center. I do want you to go into the textbook. You're going to go to section 2.8 on page 332, and you're going to do the problems 32 through 64, every other even, and including 66, and you can go ahead and put it in those boxes. Good job.